Hey, what's up, guys? This is TJ, and this is the Show Me Better in Real Life podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to help all of us to be able to grow together. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is by you telling me what it is that you would like to hear. So we know that a few of the things that this podcast is about is from the perspective of a father, a son, a grandpa, but that's not all this is. It's not just a podcast about men. It's actually something that is geared to be able to affect the entire family. And so maybe you were looking to see what the perspective of a grandpa might be. Maybe your perspective may be from the daughter of a father, and you want to know how to navigate through certain situations when it comes to that dynamic of a relationship. Wherever you are, we want to be able to hit you directly with that. And so that's the purpose of this video. So if you can do me a favor, and TikTok, on Instagram, any place where there's DMs or an inbox or a comment section, I want to encourage you to go ahead and leave a comment, drop a DM, so that we could go ahead and approach a bunch of different things. We're going to be having conversations with different types of people with different walks of life. I'm going to be telling you about my life experiences and the perspective that I have coming from where I'm coming from. But I'd also love to be able to include where you are, because one of the gifts and the beauty in community is the fact that there's different walks of life, different perspectives, different questions that can be asked and answered. And so I'm hoping that you'll help me be able to do that. What we're looking to do is to be better together. And so join this journey with me.
I mean, they don't know how long. You got that set up in 5 minutes.
It's absolutely. It was totally 5 minutes. Oh man.
Been sitting in this here chair for 2 hours. No joke.
Listen, man, it's not that far off. Hey, what's up, guys? This is TJ with the Show Me Better in Real Life podcast. And actually, my name is Mike. This is TJ. TJ, how are you doing today?
Good. Started this podcast about in the beginning of the year. No, sure.
No doubt, man. Anyway, so we got, obviously, I'm TJ. This is Mike. Mike is one of my coworkers. That's how we met. And so a lot of what it is that we kind of navigate through on the Show Me Better podcast is essentially exactly as the title says, is to like show other people better. And it's not because I've got it all together, or even that Mike's got it all together, but it's just that we can learn from each other through the like different stories and perspectives that we have. And so, Mike, before we dive into anything that's remotely deep, why don't you just tell us a little bit about you?
Okay, sure, yeah. From the very beginning, born in Phoenix, Arizona, mostly raised in Prescott, Arizona, a very nice place, big. A lot of people go there to retire. It's a small town, but tons of golf courses. But was raised there, and then went through obviously school, elementary, high school, junior high, and then went to college in Ohio, a Bible college there called World Harvest, now called Christian Valor or something like that. And then went to Leadership College in Springfield, Missouri, or Ozark, and then Central Bible College. And then through that time, I worked through a couple different churches, worked in some kids ministries, was a nanny, dated some people with kids, so got a little bit of parenting experience before I ever had kids. And now I have 2 kids of my own, and still navigating fatherhood, and I love it. I love having my 2 boys. They're a blast. And so I feel like I was blessed with some pretty easy kids as far as like behavioral wise and stuff like that, and we have a lot of fun together. So that's like the fast version.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll slow it down a little bit. Like kind of growing up, what was that like for you? Like I know you said you grew up in Arizona. Mm-hmm. Like, did you have a pretty chill childhood?
So I mean, when I was really young, my biological father. I think my mom, I was the third of 3. I was the youngest, and it was an abusive situation, very abusive. And so there's actually, because of that whole situation, there's not like a ton of pictures of me when I was really that young. Yeah. But we had to go to some like kind of like hiding a little bit into different homes or whatever, just to separate ourselves from that situation. But luckily, I had like an amazing stepdad that came into the picture, and he raised us 3 kids, and eventually my parents adopted a 4th. So it was an interesting, from a young age, it was very interesting. And I know through the work that you and I do and some of the work that I've had, I've learned that when you're that young, you can actually have a lot of trauma can be even more intense when your brain's developing, you know. I don't feel like I have a ton of trauma, but I mean, but it could affect, you know, kids when they're that young, when they have that type of trauma. So, so I was raised by my stepdad. And yeah, I mean, I felt like it was normal. It was all I ever knew. I mean, I was really young. We talked to my biological father here and there, but it was pretty rare. And I feel like as 3 kids, we're super blessed with an awesome stepdad that made sure we were in church, loved on us, and worked really hard, showed us what hard work really is, kind of thing. So that's like kind of how that played out, you know.
Yeah. So one of the things that we were kind of talking about actually on the way, because we're actually on like a work trip, and part of the conversation that we were kind of having is like the effect that having dad in the house has on you, or not having dad in the house. And the percentages are crazy when it comes to like those types of things.
We all call our stepdad dad.
Yeah.
So I don't remember that gap. And I think even my biological father and my mom went to church still. So I don't remember a gap. And my stepdad and my mom were really, I mean, we were always in church, you know, and involved in church. So, and always, I mean, talked about the word growing up a lot. And my mom and dad, you know, read the Bible every morning pretty much. And they would say that, because they were young, sometimes I forget like how young they were raising us, you know, because they were like, now it just seems like they were kids, you know, raising. And so I don't think I necessarily saw it modeled. I mean, my parents did pray with me, and I still pray with my parents. You know, I mean, both my biological and dad have passed away in like the last year or two. But would always pray with my stepdad and pray with my mom a lot over the phone. And I try to pray with friends and stuff like that. I prayed with my nephew, I believe, the other day. And so I try to make a habit of doing that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that technology is bad for, but there is good things that we can use it for. And being able to connect and pray with someone that lives in a different state is one of those benefits. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't know if I saw it modeled. It's just something that I've started doing, and try to pray with them even when they're not with me every day. I obviously pray when they're with me, but definitely when they're at least once when they're not with me a day. Yeah.
One of the things that like I find myself trying to do is be intentional too. And like with trying to be intentional, like so for me, there's like I had a pretty good childhood. Lived with both of my parents. You know, obviously up until I was 18 years old and went off to school, and you know, we didn't have a perfect life, but like they provided for us. When my parents were arguing, they took it to the bedroom, and you know, if they messed up in front of us, they apologized and all those different things. But you know, one of the things that I realized kind of going into like becoming going into manhood, trying to figure out some of the things that I liked about my life, some of the things that I was like, man, I really need to fix, is it caused for me to like kind of think back to my past. You know, and some of the ways that like I realized that there were some ways that I needed to kind of correct, both through the Holy Spirit and through just my own discipline, is the way that I talk to my kids. And so, man, I hear you talking to your boys, and it's full of love and joy and all these different things. And, you know, one of the things I used to get really bothered by, I'm like, man, you know, it's not that I talk trash to my kids, but it's just like it's more aggressive than what I want for it to be, you know. And so in the last like 6 or 7 years, I have been very intentional about in the moment, and this kind of goes back to even what we heard at this conference, like in the moment, hearing what's being said, saying why, and asking the right questions, like why is it that I respond in this way? And so I'm not the guy that is blaming parents or, you know, just my upbringing, but like a lot of it is because of the way the family responded out of where they were, right?
Oh yeah.
And so for like with my parents, they my mom is a baby of 17. My dad is the baby of 9, I think it is. And so those are, I mean, my mom, before she passed, my mom hasn't passed, but her sister passed. Had a sister that was old enough to be her grandmother. Because right. 17, a baby of 17 kids.
That's crazy.
And so, like, in that context, whether it's in my mom's context with the 16 brothers and sisters or my dad's context with the, 8 other siblings, right, there was a lot of, they had to take care of each other because of the wide variety of family members. And so there wasn't a lot of time for, like, oh, how do you feel about you know what I'm saying?
Right,
like
you said 17 on your mom's side?
Yeah, 17.
I thought 6 was a lot, so
17, man. And so there was a lot of harsh talking. Like, I remember going into ministry school, and like, it's not that I've never been a super rough person, but like when you go around people who are not soft, but like, just they don't grow up in the same context that you do, what you say might sound like you're being super harsh. So I would have conversations and somebody would be like, hey, TJ, can you take out the trash? I'm like, you take the trash out yourself. And for somebody who is not used to somebody who comes off as aggressive, it's not like I was like being hateful or I'm going to kill you or anything like that.
It's like, you got 2 arms?
Right. So it seems very like hard. And again, it's the same thing with my kids. It's not like I'm like saying, you're an idiot. Why don't you, fill in the blank with whatever it is. But like, maybe a kid might receive that kind of like what we were talking about.
Very, very direct.
Right. Very, very direct. And they're like, why is Dad mad at me? I'm not mad at you.
Like, they take it personal.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just want you to do what I told you to do. And it's because I love you and I care about your safety and I care about whether or not you're a man or a young lady. And so this is the only way. And so over the years, I have been, like, especially over the last 5 years, I've been very intentional. And I told you to. So listen.
Remember when I told you?
This is what I would like for you to do. And so I feel like all of us in some capacity have, like, maybe not as direct as my like experiences are, but like everybody has something to where they're like, man, I really wish that the process was quicker for me to do things this way, whether it's for my kids or in my relationships. And oftentimes it's kind of spanned based off of their life experiences, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that you can think of, is there like maybe 1 or 2 things that maybe looking back that you think maybe would have helped you have better expression of emotions, better relationships, better view on your identity, whatever it might be?
Well, as far as like raising kids, something they mentioned at the conference too. One of the things that I wrote down is remembering how we felt when we were young.
Yeah.
Like, because I actually had a lot of frustration. Because academically, I mean, I got held back in kindergarten. Like, I mean, people are like, "Did you not color in the lines right?" I'm like, "I guess not." I mean, like, what do you do in kindergarten? Right. But I got held back in kindergarten, and then throughout elementary and even junior high, I was frustrated a lot with like the schooling aspect, and then I think that affected my confidence. We talked about that a little bit, which most people wouldn't think that I had a confidence issue now, because I've really grown from that. But I try to remember my emotions and my feelings when I was a kid, like, and they mentioned at the conference, like when you're a teenager, like you think a breakup is like the end of the world, because that's all at that point in your life. And that maybe is one of the most dramatic things that have happened kind of thing. So to them, it is a big deal.
Right.
So I try to remember what my emotions were like when I was a kid. Like, how did I feel when I was told to take out the trash, or how did I feel when I had to keep my room clean, and not that's an excuse not to do that stuff, but it helps me speak to them in a more understanding way. When I remember, I'm like, oh yeah, this was annoying for me when I was a kid also, and I don't want to act like it was like I always did everything right, kind of thing, and without complaining ever,
Right. Back in my day.
We walked uphill both ways. Like, how did that work exactly? So that's one thing that I've learn, and I even, in coaching and stuff like that, I try to tell others to like try to remember when you were a kid, and remember your emotions, because that'll help us, I think, train kids and raise them. So that's one of the things. And I would say self-awareness is another big thing too. Like as far as communicating to the kids, like, and it's funny because I'm trying to get my 7-year-old to understand, like, can you tell that you're grumpy right now? Like, and I'm not trying to be mean or demean him. Like, I really want him to be able to tell that when he's like easily irritated. Like, I'm like, do you see the difference now? Or the next morning, I'm like, did you realize that you were a little bit more irritable before the nap? And so far, no. Like, he's like, nope, I haven't noticed.
But Mike, that's good though.
Yeah.
Like that is something that, so just to kind of give you a context for like my family, and I don't know if I've like kind of giving you a breakdown of my family, why we have so many kids.
not really, actually.
So I've got a total of 3 biological kids. Mm-hmm. 1 is still alive, 2 have passed on. Then we have, between the rest of them, we have 8 that are either they have just come to live with us for a season of time because of some stuff that they had going on at home, mm-hmm. and they came from the community. And then we have some family members that have come to live with us. And so between the 3 biological that we have and the 8 that are either adopted or legally adopted or adopted and loved, mm-hmm. we've got a total of 11 kids.
Okay.
And so the majority of our kids are they're adopted adopted. Mm-hmm. And so like in our house, like that's something that has taken, because like when the kids moved in like for foster care, so to kind of give you an idea of what it is that we like how we, I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound weird. I'm gonna just say it like this: the way that we obtained our family was put together, is about 13, 14 years ago. We were taking our oldest daughter to school. I'm sorry, not school. We were taking her to church because basically she was living with some family members. They stopped going to church. She moved back in with her parents, said the only way that you can keep going to church is if you take this sibling with you, if you take this sibling with you, if you mm-hmm. take this sibling. So then it turned into, okay, so the only way that you can go to church is if they pick you up at 8:30 on Sunday morning and keep you until 8:30 at night. Oh, wow. And so, for 2 years, we were picking them up for church. We were feeding the kids multiple times where, like, the kids didn't have any food, and most of them were in diapers and still drinking formula and things like that. So, like, the oldest would call, and she'd be like, hey, we need XYZ. Is there any way you can help? And so we did that for a period of time. Then the oldest found out she was pregnant. This is a known story, otherwise I wouldn't be telling it. But she found out she was pregnant. Some stuff went down at home to where they had to get removed, and then we've had them since then. And so, like during the time that the kids moved in, we were like 23 and 24 years old. So we had and we had our own stuff that we were trying to navigate through between the death of 2 kids, being parents to a baby. At the time when they moved in, he was like 2 or 3 years old. Yeah. And so like navigating through all of that, and then bringing in, at that time, an additional 5 kids into the house. The oldest was pregnant. And so like,
you guys were like on the fast track for learning.
Right. Just boom, boom, boom. So one of the things that it took like 15 years for us to be able to come to the place of is, especially for me, because again, in my house, like you either did what you were told to do, or you got popped upside the head, or you got a SWAT, or, mm-hmm. You're grounded for 47 years. I actually just got ungrounded last year for my birthday. No, but like, going from that type of structure to where like people with trauma is different. And like, obviously all of us have some form of trauma, right. But when you have a special type of trauma where the parents were leaving and they were gone for days at a time. I left a 15-year-old with a 2-month-old, a 4-month-old.
Right.
Down the line, we even heard about it today about how neglect has, in some cases, even deeper of an effect.
Right.
And so anyway, going back to what I was saying, the fact that you're walking your sons through, hey, do you recognize that when you do this, it has this effect on your body, is a great start. Whether they get it or not,
Right.
like whether it's an instantaneous thing or it's a like, oh, let me have to keep doing this over and over and over again. Like, it's a great place to start because your boys already like have a heads up on what so many other kids don't have, you know?
Right. I think self-awareness is so key for adults and kids. And so that's one reason why I want them to have that self-awareness. Because I have to have self-awareness when I'm irritable. Like, man, I kind of got frustrated with them a little bit quicker than usual.
Right.
Like, I need to not do that, you know? Need to hold my breath a little bit or, you know, take a deep breath kind of thing.
Right.
And I catch myself every once in a while where I'm more irritable, you know? And that's why, I mean, I just know for a lot of issues that people have, self-awareness is like, you know, half the battle.
Yeah.
If you don't have self-awareness, you're never even going to know that you have an issue.
Absolutely.
You're going to think everyone's against you or crazy, you know, when really it's
100%.
like, it's you, you know?
Yeah. One of my kids, they just started working last year, and she's one of our older kids, but like just because of some stuff at home, there's a lot of things that she didn't experience, specifically in certain ways to mature in relationships and social cues and things like that. So anyway, like some of the things that have happened, like in her job, like some of the conversations that we've had have been, hey, have you thought about it from this perspective? I know that XYZ is happening. I know so-and-so is talking to you in this way. And hey, they may be 100% wrong, and that's fine, but let's talk this thing through. You know, one of the things that I have to find myself doing a lot, and it's not because I'm necessarily wrong a lot, but it's more of I care about the people that are around me. And so if I say something in a way that rubs people the wrong way, and this is one of the ways that I've tried to like train my kids is, hey, if I say something that bothers you, maybe it's not the right time in the moment to say, hey, that makes me mad. But sometimes it is. But like, if you're reading the room and it's not the right time, come back and say, hey, Dad, like when you said XYZ, it really hurt my feelings because I don't want to do that. You know, sometimes like there's things that need to be said, but if I can find a way, sometimes I get in my emotions or I say things that are harsh that I didn't think was harsh when it came out of my mouth, but when it hit your ears and heart, then it was. Yeah. And so one of the things I'm consistently doing is like apologizing. You know, I'm finding myself in spaces where I'm like, I'm not above apologizing when I do something wrong. Now, that's not to say I'm not bullheaded in that. There's not times where I'm like, no, bro, you were wrong. I mean, I'm sorry I hit you wrong, but you're wrong. But do you think that you feel like it's important, like whenever we're navigating through that because we were talking about how like manhood and fatherhood are so important to the family. How important do you think that it is for us as men to be in places where we are okay with either apologizing or correcting things in a way that may not shine the best light on us?
Oh, I think it's super important because obviously our kids are going to be learning from us. If they never see us apologize, chances are they'll never apologize. And you don't want them to, that would be like that not having self-awareness. Apologizing, it's part of self-awareness. You see that you did something wrong and you're not too prideful to be like, hey, I did this wrong. So I think I see it, obviously I don't want to create the opportunities on purpose, but I do see it as an opportunity when I'm like, I have an opportunity to be able to say, hey guys, I overreacted like this. Because I mean, even just the other day, and I always feel so bad about it afterwards though too. But I was already kind of feverish and I was sick. We didn't do anything all weekend. And the kids play great though. They just play with each other. And we're very social, so we're always hanging out. So staying home is pretty different. But we're staying home and I'm mostly just on the couch. They're playing. And then my son's drinking, and he spilled some water, which isn't a big deal, you know. I'm like, Corbin, but I'm like, what are you doing, you know? And then so he's cleaning it up, you know, and I'm already like, it's not a big deal because I'm backtracking a little bit. I didn't get too mad at him. Yeah. But probably moments later, I had this foot massager that came in a box or whatever, and it's a box I was planning on keeping, but hindsight, I think I threw it away today or yesterday or today. I didn't need it. But my son was sitting on it and he crushed it, you know. I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, go to your room. Yeah. And it wasn't a time where he needed to go to his room, really. It was just too much happened really quick and I was sick, you know.
Right.
And my youngest, man, like I don't get on to my kids that much. I mean, it doesn't seem like they do enough for me to get on to him.
Yeah.
But he just started bawling, and I'm like, but and then I was like, no. Like he was in this room for like 2 seconds. I'm like, buddy, come here.
Yeah.
And so I explained it was just, I'm like, I'm sick. He just did that, and then this happened, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, I overreacted, you know, you didn't need to go to your room. I'm sorry. And he's just like bawling, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, buddy, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Trying to explain to him that it was not really that big of a deal. It was just a lot that happened at once, and I didn't feel good, you know. So I mean, that was apologized, you know. And so that was a situation to where it was like, at least they got to see me that I do apologize, that I'm not perfect, you know. 100%. I want to be their hero, but I'm still not perfect.
Right,
you know?
right. And I think those types of moments are so important too, though, man, because like you said, if they don't see that example, it's not, man, and I don't ever want to downplay like the importance of a good mom being involved and showing kids so many different things, you know. But like in moments like that, even for both parents, like I think it's important for us to not be like, here's just an experience that I have is, or I'll say that I used to have a lot more, is like I felt challenged or disrespected, like if my kids used to ask certain questions. And so they'd be like, I'd say, hey, I don't, just a random example, I don't want you to jump on the bed. And they'd be like, well, why? And I'm like, what do you mean why? Don't ask me why. It's because I said so. You know. And again, it's one of those things where you
and they're not asking it to be disrespectful.
Right.
They're just wondering, like,
right. They're just like, I legitimately don't know. I'm 10 years old.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just getting to the point where I can jump on the bed without falling in 2 seconds. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why is it that I have to stop jumping on the bed? And you know, so it went from during a certain season of my life, don't say that, that's disrespectful, to, is that really disrespectful?
Yeah. Was there ever a time where you're like, actually, I don't have a good reason of why you can't do that?
100%. 100%. Like, there's plenty of times where I'm like, they ask me the question, and my wife, sometimes she makes me mad too. My wife, she'll be like, yeah, why? I'm like, oh, so we're doing that now. So then we have our little argument.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't do that. You're supposed to be on my side. How you jumping on their side? They're the kids.
She's like, I'm just curious
They're being
too.
disrespectful. She's like, I'm just saying, I don't know how that's disrespectful. Tell us how that's disrespectful. But you know, it's just a process of learning, man.
Yeah.
And I think there are pivotal moments that like make for like dads who are growing, you know. And that's something that I also try to be intentional in. Is that's why I love like some of the books that we read. Like even with this book that we're getting ready to read. Mm-hmm. I've read it, but I'm looking forward to reading it again.
Oh, you've already read it?
Yeah. Called The Body Keeps the Score. Atomic Habits is another one of those that I really love. Oh shoot, there's another couple. Anyway, so there's a couple of different books that have been really impactful for me, and the biggest reason why is because like it's helping me to, man. I was telling one of my kids, I want to say it was my 11-year-old. She was just being super expressive, and you know there are still times, but before there were a lot more times where like big emotions. Or like super expressive emotions, like physically made my body like feel bad. You know, like there'd be these huge emotions to where they're really sad or they got hurt, so they're screaming at the top of their lungs. My body takes it and I just immediately get overwhelmed. And like I've gotten to the point where I can like self-regulate much, much better. But like there's a period of time where I'm like, everybody get out of here. Because it's like, you know, we talked about fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And oftentimes mine is, it's not a physical fighting, but it's like I got to clear everybody away from me in order to be able to fix what I need to fix. And then I'll come back. And if apologies are needed, I'm going to apologize.
Yeah.
If I need to give you a hug, I'll give you a hug. But, like, my mom's the same way. Like, where any big emotions that we had whenever I was younger was like, you need to calm down. And I'm like, okay, cool, but how?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like, it's interesting to see like how like the different experiences that we have, they kind of like they mold how our future is going to look, and sometimes we have to like untangle like some of the ways that things were supposed to be done compared to the way that we learned how to, I guess, kind of cope with.
Yeah.
And so, do you feel like in your relationships across the board, like we know that you are being intentional with your kids, we know that you love your kids, and that you do everything that you can to make sure that when it comes to their safety and their growth, that it is that you're putting that as a priority. But are there any relationships that maybe haven't worked out to the best, whether it's a romantic or a friendship or whatever, that maybe have just been a process of like untangling some of the ways that you received that whenever you were younger? Does that make sense?
What was that last part of what? Because of how I was young, how it may have affected.
Right.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, I do have two kids, two different moms, so I've had relationships that haven't worked out.
Right.
I would say, and people. I mean, it's kind of a common phrase, but like a savior complex.
Yeah.
So I had a stepdad that came in and like totally saved us, you know, and I feel like I've kind of gone off after people that I needed to like help, or I felt like I needed to help. Not always, but in certain circumstances. And I think that was obviously the wrong reason to be in a relationship, kind of. And so I've become more self-aware of that. Some people, luckily, I have good friends that have called me out on that. You know, like you need to stop just going for people that have issues or need help or whatever kind of thing. And so that would be something that I think I learned almost subconsciously when I was younger, and then I kind of figured it out later, and like real far later. You know, not in probably in the last 5 years or so that was something that I did, and then I probably picked that up because of the good things that I saw when I was young, but it just affected me in a certain way, you know. So I mean, that would be. I mean, does that answer the question?
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that like no matter what, like each person is responsible for how they take in the information, right? Because like you said, you had a positive experience where like your stepdad came in like during the time where things were wacky with bio dad and with mom, and having small like gap between having a man in the house and not.
And I guess that could be a half glass full. I mean, some people may look at that and maybe just say like a negative situation, because I guess there was negative there too. But I mean, I see it as my stepdad coming in, that whole part being positive.
Right.
You know?
Right. So I think it's interesting the way that we we have those moments, right? I'm trying to think. What do you think is a positive thing that you got from watching like your mom as you have, I mean, where you're at now, from the time that you were younger until now? A
positive thing, I mean, definitely them. I mean, us being in church, you know, but also like I think it's kind of hard to remember, but I think we were raised in a church that went over verse by verse kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think we had Bible studies at our house, like hosted Bible studies. And like, I think even my parents just spoke the word to us a lot. And we had like conversations about the word and the Bible and stuff like that. And so, I mean, I think the word, I mean, obviously it's, you know, living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword type of thing. I think that really stuck with us, you know, even in our bad times when there's a time that I turned away from the Lord, like I knew God existed because I'd experienced him, you know. And I think just them praying over us a lot, praying with us, and the love that they had for us that was evident, and really raising us up in a Christian home with the Bible and stuff like that. I think that impacted me huge, and then I see me doing that with my kids as well. And so I mean, I'd say that's like the biggest thing, is just having Scripture, going over the Bible, having Bible studies, them reading the Bible with us a lot when we were young. So I'd say that, and I have my kids memorizing verses already, you know. I think my oldest, almost has 20 memorized, and they have to remember the previous ones. So like I have a little chart every 3 they memorize, they get a prize. Every 5 they
Yeah.
memorize, they get like money, cash money.
Yeah.
And it's fun. I've recorded like doing it with them, and it's not necessarily easy. It's very like really they get like sidetracked a lot, but that's part of it, and it's fun,
Yeah.
And then they get their last one, they're like, all right, where's my money? They start like jumping around and stuff like that. Give me my money.
Oh man.
When they get 100, I'm supposed to give them $100. So
that sounds like good incentive.
yeah, hopefully it'll be a season that I have $100.
Yeah.
I mean, this is money. This is as good as money. This is an IOU.
Give them a million of those.
But yeah, that is a big part, being involved in church, and not just going to church, but my parents being involved in church and us seeing that, I think was huge.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, like even those moments that we're talking about, where I got upset at my son for falling into a box that wasn't even gonna keep. Like that was impactful. Like he remembered that because his mom later, when we went back to his mom's house, she's like, "So what happened with the box?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh great,
Like,
you told her?" No, no, I never wanted to.
Don't ever tell her that again.
I always want them to be honest. But it shows you how impactful that is. But I can tie that to a positive thing.
Yeah.
The apology.
Yeah.
And showing that we should never be too proudful. So because that was kind of an intense. For a moment, something that he obviously stuck with him.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a good thing to tie a positive thing to. So, hopefully, he remembers the positive aspect of it as well. So,
one of the things that kind of reminds me of is like tonight, one of the key points that they had, like during dinner, was behavioral match.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, like it can give an opportunity for like a core memory to where it was both something that could have potentially like made them upset and been a bad turning point because of the way that you handled it. It gave them more of an opportunity to later on be able to, and obviously the behavioral match was a little different in the way that they were saying it.
Right.
But just the way that it kind of processes in my brain is like the same as like fixing anything else,
Mm-hmm.
So whenever they come to a place where they have said something that was off, or maybe talk to somebody who's in authority, kind of wild or crazy, like subconsciously they can go back and be like, oh, Dad XYZ, if he messed up, then I can mess up, and so it's okay for me to apologize. Mm-hmm. Man, one of the things that that I was had a really proud moment for one of my kids was he's 15 now. So he's got a little hair on his chest, a little hair over the roof of his mouth, and he's not quite taller than I am, but he's getting pretty close. But one of the things I've always been very, very serious about is making sure that my kids respect my wife, mm-hmm. And that regardless of how big the kids get, that they understand that respect is mandatory in my house for my wife, because she's the one that she's the glue that holds things together,
right?
And so. Obviously it didn't always pan out because they're kids and they're learning and growing and trying to test their boundaries and things like that. But one of the really proud moments that I had with one of my boys was like he had stayed up till 2 a.m. playing video games the night before, had to get up early the next morning for basketball practice, had a terrible day at school, had failed the test. I had gotten on him because he failed the test as he was getting out of the, whatever. And I'm like, you can do better than that. If you had to handle business the way that you're supposed to, you may have had a different result. And so he's already upset because Dad's upset with him. He, had a rotten day because the teachers was talking to him crazy.
Yeah.
So he comes home and I'm like, get in there and study and blah, blah, blah. And so my wife was like, hey. And he's like, what? And I came around the corner like, what did you? He's like, I'm going to study, and walks off. So I'm going to walk down the stairs to talk to him.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, hold on. Just hold on. You need to calm down, and then you then you can talk to him.
Right.
And so, took about 10 minutes and was on my way down the stairs to have a conversation with them. And
I've seen YouTube videos where they do that as a prank to see how the dad reacts.
My kids did that to me. This was that time.
That was real.
Yeah, this was real life. This was real life. So he, before I get a chance to open my door, he knocks on the door, and he's like, "Mom, I'm so sorry. This is not any excuse, but I have had a terrible day, and these are some of the things that were going on, and it's no excuse. I should not have talked to you like that, because I love you, and that's not my intent." And I'm like, so I let him say his piece, and I sat down, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But it's like moments like that.
That's good that you gave him that 10 minutes too.
Right. It wasn't intentional. Trust me.
Yeah.
No, man, one of the gifts of being married to somebody who has a heart, the same heart that you do, and I've told this to multiple people. There are a couple of major goals in my life. One is to serve God with all my heart, soul, and strength in such a way that it inspires other people to be able to do the same. Another one is to be the best husband that I can possibly be. Mm-hmm. Another one is for my kids to know God and at least have an opportunity to follow him faithfully in the most authentic way, because they've seen me live authentic. Right. But another one of those goals is to be able to put my kids in positions to be able to be successful in multiple different ways. And so that is the framework for how I live my life in every capacity. Mm-hmm. So even whenever it's easy for me to be like, oh, I've got this wall that I can hide behind and say, I'm dad. I can, fill in the blank, or I so-and-so. And my wife is the same way. She's like, even in the times where we have arguments or disagreements, it's like, hey man, I want to remind you, I love you.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to be able to not only have that, but also model that for my kids. And I think one of the things that people can gain the most from every part of our life is authenticity, man. Mm-hmm. And so
for sure,
as we're kind of wrapping up, if somebody was asking Mike, you've come to this place where you are in your life. It seems like you're happy. It seems like you're doing some of the things that you really enjoy doing, including raising great boys and continuing to follow the Lord in as passionate a way that you possibly can. How can I make steps to be a man like Mike?
Definitely praying, staying in your word. I have a lot of favorite verses, but a verse that I try to remember frequently is one of them is Psalm 27:4, and that's just about being in God's presence. It says, "One thing I ask the Lord, this is what I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." Yeah. And it's 27:4, but I always try to remember it 24/7. I want to live out 27:4. I'm like, why didn't he just make it 24/7? That would have been, I want to say it would be better, but it seems like. But so that's one of them. But another one is, if anyone would follow me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily.
Hey guys, so sorry to interrupt the video. Unfortunately, the video shut off early, and for some reason I couldn't get it to pull back up, but that's just a part of the podcasting game, I guess. But anyway, so kind of the way that it ended up, Mike gave some great advice, essentially saying the way to become a man of integrity as well as character is to be a man of God, to be somebody that dives into his faith in a serious fashion. It was a great conversation all around, and I want to let you guys know I appreciate you watching and listening to this podcast. If any of the things that you heard in this podcast either touched your heart or you feel like added some value, I want to encourage you to share, and then also type in the comments. Also, just whenever you get a chance, go ahead and make sure that you subscribe to both the Spotify and the YouTube channels. And then for Mike, Mike has got some awesome content that he does with his son that's really interesting, is worth a watch. And the majority of his stuff is on Facebook. And so I'll go ahead and link his stuff below. But once again, I appreciate both Mike and you guys for listening and him being on the podcast. And I look forward to next time.